Have you ever wondered what happened to the 10 lost tribes of Israel? Their disappearance is one of history's biggest mysteries, and in this video we delve into the fascinating theories about their fate. The 10 lost tribes of Israel vanished from the pages of history, leaving behind a trail of speculation and unanswered questions. Join us as we explore the evidence and unravel the mysteries surrounding their disappearance. The story of the 10 lost tribes of Israel is a captivating journey through time, filled with intrigue, adventure, and the enduring power of faith. In this video, we uncover their legacy and the potential clues to their whereabouts. Do you believe in the Bible's accounts of the 10 lost tribes of Israel? How do you think they disappeared without a trace? Well, today we will look into this mystery by exploring some of the possible whereabouts of these lost tribes. Stick around till the end as we delve deeper into one of history's greatest mysteries. According to the Bible, the nation of Israel was composed of 12 tribes, each descended from one of Jacob's 12 sons. Over time, these tribes grew into powerful clans that played a significant role in shaping ancient Israel's history and culture. However, during the 8th century BC, the Assyrians conquered much of the Middle East, including the northern kingdom of Israel. They deported many people from their homelands, never to return. But what happened to them? To answer this question, let's turn to the Bible, which tells the story of the lost tribes and their mysterious disappearance. The northern kingdom of Israel consisted of 10 of the 12 tribes, while the southern kingdom of Judah consisted of the remaining 2 tribes, Benjamin and Judah. The prophet Isaiah foretold the fall of the northern kingdom, predicting that its people would be taken away from their land by the Assyrians, and this is exactly what happened in 722 BC. The Assyrians conquered the northern kingdom of Israel and exiled the inhabitants beyond the river Khorasan, most likely in present-day Iran or Turkey. Only 2 tribes, Judah and Benjamin, were left behind in the southern kingdom. But the story doesn't end there. The Bible also tells us that after the fall of the northern kingdom, God said to Israel, "Yet my people, like sheep, are scattered about them on the mountains. Like lambs, they wander through the land, bleating as they go and have no shepherd." This passage implies that the 10 lost tribes were not completely wiped out by the Assyrians, but rather scattered and dispersed throughout the region. In the book of Deuteronomy, Moses had already predicted this scattering, saying, "A nation you shall be, and your house shall be multiplied, and all these blessings shall come upon you and your offspring far off and near to the ends of the earth. There shall return again as many as possible of the children of Israel. They shall possess the land of Israel again." This prophecy suggests that the lost tribes would eventually return to their homeland. However, it has been 28 centuries since the northern kingdom was exiled, and the prophecy has yet to be fulfilled. So where did the 10 lost tribes go? And will they ever return to Israel? Let's explore some of the theories and possibilities surrounding their disappearance. The Book of Kings tells us that the Assyrians took the Israelites captive beyond the river Gosan, a location that has been the subject of much debate and speculation among scholars. Some believe that the river mentioned in the text is the Gihon River, which flows through present-day Turkey and Iran, while others believe it refers to the Kabur River, which flows through Syria and Iraq. Either way, the captured Israelites were taken far from their homeland, making it unlikely that they would ever return. One theory suggests that the 10 lost tribes were absorbed into other populations, such as the Kurds, a group of people who lived in the same region as the ancient Israelites. Some scholars argue that the Kurds share linguistic and cultural similarities with the Israelites, and it is possible that they are descended from the lost tribes. In fact, the Hebrew Bible contains a passage that seems to support this theory. It says, "And there shall be in the latter days a remnant of Israel, and they shall come and seek the Lord their God, and they shall come with their whole heart and their whole soul unto the heat." Could the Kurds be the remnant of Israel spoken of in this passage? Some believe so. Another theory suggests that the 10 lost tribes migrated to the east and settled in areas such as Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India. This theory is based on the similarities between ancient Israelite customs and those found in these regions, such as the use of certain plants for medicinal purposes. Some scholars also point to the fact that the Bible mentions traders from the east visiting Israel in the time of King Solomon, suggesting that trade routes may have connected the two regions. Additionally, archaeological evidence such as the discovery of an ancient synagogue in Afghanistan's capital city of Kabul supports the theory that Jews lived in the area. But perhaps the most intriguing possibility is that the 10 lost tribes can be found among the people of Israel today. After the destruction of the first temple in 586 BC, many Jews were exiled to Babylon. However, a small group remained in the land of Israel, refusing to leave their ancestral home. These people became known as the Samaritans. Over time, they developed their own distinct traditions and beliefs, which differed in some ways from those of mainstream Judaism. For example, the Samaritans only follow the first 5 books of the Torah and do not accept the later books as part of their religious canon. They also worship on Mount Gerizim instead of at the Western Wall in Jerusalem. Despite these differences, many scholars believe that the Samaritans are descended from the 10 lost tribes, and that they have preserved the traditions and customs of their ancestors. Today, the Samaritans number only a few thousand, living mainly in the Israeli West Bank and scattered communities throughout the world. If you ever visit Israel, you may have the opportunity to meet one of them and learn more about their unique traditions and beliefs. Another theory suggests that the 10 lost tribes can be found among the Black Jews of Ethiopia. According to this theory, the Israelites traveled to Ethiopia after being exiled by the Assyrians. One piece of evidence that supports this theory is the fact that Ethiopian Jews have kept their traditional customs and language, even though they have lived in Ethiopia for centuries. Another piece of evidence is the presence of Queen of Sheba, who visited King Solomon in Jerusalem. Some scholars believe that she was an Ethiopian queen, and her visit to Israel could have been the catalyst for the establishment of a Jewish community in Ethiopia. However, it's important to note that the Ethiopian Jews, also known as Beta Israel, were actually converted to Judaism over 2,000 years ago. Their ancestors were not necessarily part of the lost tribes, but rather local inhabitants who were converted by Jewish missionaries. As we've seen, there are many theories and possibilities surrounding the whereabouts of the 10 lost tribes of Israel. While the Bible tells us that they were taken captive beyond the river Gerson, their ultimate fate remains a mystery. Some believe they were absorbed into other populations, while others believe they migrated to the east, or that they are still present in Israel today, either among the Samaritans or the Black Jews of Ethiopia. The truth is, we may never know for sure what happened to the lost tribes, but the search for their descendants continues to fascinate scholars and theologians to this day. So what do you think happened to the 10 lost tribes of Israel? Do you believe that they will ever return to their homeland as predicted in the Bible? We would love to hear your thoughts and join the conversation. Please feel free to share your opinions in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more informative content. Thanks for watching. Until next time. What are your thoughts on the various theories surrounding the lost tribes of Israel? Do you believe that they were absorbed into other populations, such as the Kurds? Or do you think they may have migrated to other parts of the world, such as Afghanistan, Pakistan, or India? What evidence do you find most compelling? And do you think the lost tribes will ever return to Israel as predicted in the Bible? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Today, we're looking at 2 competing theories, attempting to explain where 10 of the 12 tribes of Israel went. Now, before we get into it, just a reminder, I'm not a Bible scholar. I'm not a theologian. I'm not a historian. I'm just a guy who loves learning and sharing what he learns. That said, let's jump in. The first theory we'll look at is the idea that the northern kingdom of Israel was completely wiped out by the Assyrians in 722 BC, and then repopulated by the Assyrian Empire. The reason I say that this is a theory is because there are multiple theories surrounding exactly what happened to the 10 tribes. But today, we're going to be focusing on the one that says they were wiped out and replaced. If we go back to the Book of Kings, we can read about how the northern kingdom of Israel was eventually conquered by the Assyrians. It says here, "In the end, when the king of Assyria had campaigned against the land and had entered it, he took hostages by forcing them to pass through the midst of the land, and some of them he carried away to Nineveh. But he placed others in the cities of the king's own country, and so they returned and settled in their own land, but they brought their gods with them." So in this passage it talks about how the Assyrians took some people back to Nineveh, which was the capital of Assyria, and they settled some of the Israelites in their own country. This is where the theory comes from. Now, proponents of this theory will say that the verse above implies that all of the Israelites were taken captive, and that those who weren't taken captive all fled south to Judah. But this is actually where the evidence starts to come into play. There are numerous archaeological finds that imply that Jewish communities existed throughout the Middle East during this time period, with many of these being identified as members of the lost tribes. Some of these findings include seals bearing witness to the fact that there was a community of Israel in the ancient city of Haran, with Haran being one of the major cities of the ancient Near East, located just east of the Tigris River in Mesopotamia. Another piece of evidence is an inscription found on a temple in Bekaa, Lebanon, which tells the story of the defeat of an invading force by King Yav Amri, most likely Omri, king of Israel, sometime during the 9th century BC. Additionally, there was a black basalt stone slab found in the 1960s with an inscription in ancient Hebrew that tells the story of a man named Im Lachish, son of Shemaiah, who escaped from the siege of his hometown, most likely Lachish in central Israel, by the Babylonian army in 586 BC and traveled to Yehud Medinata in the Persian Empire. While this inscription does not specifically state that Im-Lachish was of the lost tribes, it does show that even after the destruction of the northern kingdom of Israel, there were still Jews living in the area. Another line of evidence that's used to support this theory is the existence of the Samaritans. If we look at history, we can see that the Samaritans were an ancient people who lived in the region of Samaria, which is right next to Judah, and they descended from a mixed population of Israelites and non-Israelites. This would make sense if the Assyrian Empire did indeed resettle some of the Israelites back in their own country. So the theory goes that the Samaritans are actually a remnant of the lost tribes. However, this theory is hotly debated. For instance, the Encyclopedia Judaica says that the Samaritan claim of descent from the lost tribes has no historical or genetic basis. They go on to say that it seems that the origin legend of the Samaritan community reflects the desire of its members to separate themselves from the rest of the Jewish people, whom they viewed as having strayed from the true faith. So obviously, the Samaritans themselves believe that they are a remnant of the lost tribes, but scholars have disputed this for a long time. However, there is another theory, and it's the one that we'll be focusing on now, which is the theory that the northern kingdom of Israel was dispersed among other nations instead of being wiped out. A lot of the evidence for this theory comes from a book called the Book of Mormon. Now, before I get into what's written in the Book of Mormon, just a reminder, I'm not saying that the Book of Mormon is true. I'm just saying that it contains information that is worth looking at. So in the Book of Mormon, we learn that there were two main groups of people that came into the land of Israel, the house of Israel and the house of Judah. We also learn that the house of Israel was broken up into 12 tribes, and the house of Judah was made up of only 2 tribes. In the Book of Mormon, it's revealed that the house of Israel spread throughout the world, with the house of Judah eventually coming together in the southern kingdom of Israel. Eventually, the northern kingdom of Israel was destroyed by the Assyrians, and the Nephites were scattered by the Lamanites. It's interesting to note that in the Book of Mormon, the Nephites were taught to remember the Lord their God from generation to generation, and that they were taught to write down their history and record the words of the prophets. This could potentially explain why there are various archaeological finds that show a connection between the Jews and the various tribes that the Nephites interacted with, such as the Gadianton robbers and the Lamanites. These archaeological finds would help to prove that the Nephites and Lamanites were real people who lived in the ancient Americas. One way that the Nephites and the Lamanites were able to preserve their culture was through their art. The Book of Mormon tells us that the Nephites were a highly artistic people, and we can see that through their artwork. A lot of their art depicted things from their daily life, like farming, fishing, and hunting, but they also created works of art that told stories from their history. One example of this is a petroglyph that depicts Lehi and his family crossing the ocean in the ship called "The Lord Will Provide." This petroglyph is located in an area known as the Hill Cumorah, which is believed to be the location where the plates of the Book of Mormon were buried. When we look at the Book of Mormon, we can see that the Nephites were very similar to the Jews in many ways. They had a patriarchal society, they had a strong emphasis on family, and they believed in the same God as the Jews. The Nephites were also very familiar with the Old Testament, and they quoted it often in their own writings. In fact, there are many passages in the Book of Mormon that directly quote or paraphrase the Old Testament. But perhaps the most compelling evidence that the Nephites and the Jews were related is the fact that they both kept detailed records of their history. The Jews kept their records on stone tablets and papyrus, while the Nephites kept their records on gold plates. But both groups of people kept detailed accounts of their history, including their wars, their migrations, and their interactions with other nations. Now, in past episodes, we talked about ancient theories about where the lost tribes went, including the work of Josephus Flavius, which was really popular among early Christians, the idea that they went to India or even modern Iran, the idea that they went to Turkey and parts of Armenia. But now we want to talk about more modern theories, so let's get started. There are a number of different groups and individuals who believe they are descendants of the lost tribes. In particular, there are various groups in southern Africa who claim to be related to one of the tribes, the tribe of Dan. Now, this may seem strange because southern Africa is not where you would expect to find descendants of the Israelites. But there is a long history of theories suggesting that one or more of the tribes did go to Africa. In fact, in first-century Roman Africa, there were Jewish communities in what is now Algeria, Tunisia, and Libya, and according to the historian Jason Exception, it was rumored that some of the Jews in these communities were actually from the tribe of Dan. So it's not so far-fetched to think that one of the tribes could have ended up in Africa. What we are going to look at first is a theory that tries to link the lost tribe of Dan to the Lemba people who live today in southern Africa. According to this theory, the Lemba left the Middle East around 2,000 years ago, traveled through Egypt and then down the coast of Africa, and eventually settled in what is now Mozambique and South Africa. This theory is based on the tradition of the Lemba people themselves, as well as archaeological evidence and linguistic similarities between the Lemba language and Hebrew. We should point out that the Lemba people do not call themselves the lost tribe of Dan, but rather refer to themselves by an endonym, which roughly translates into the people. The theory that they are descendants of the lost tribe of Dan was proposed in the early 20th century by a South African named A.C. Wid, who was interested in the history and culture of the Lemba people. He noticed that their customs and traditions seemed to be very similar to those described in the Old Testament for the ancient Israelites. For example, the Lemba practice circumcision and have a dietary law that forbids them from eating pork or shellfish, just like the ancient Israelites. They also have a tradition of celebrating Passover, which is a major holiday in Judaism commemorating the Exodus from Egypt. This is all very interesting, but it doesn't really prove anything. However, in 2005, genetic studies were done on the Lemba people that suggested that they may indeed be related to the ancient Israelites. One study published in the American Journal of Human Genetics found that the Lemba share a genetic marker with other Jewish communities from the Middle East and Europe. This marker is found on the non-recombinant Y chromosome and is passed down from father to son. The researchers concluded that the Lemba most likely share a common ancestor with other Jewish communities between 2,000 and 6,000 years ago. Now, keep in mind, this does not definitively prove that the Lemba are descendants of the lost tribe of Dan. The lost tribe of Dan may have had a small genetic component that over time has been diluted by intermarriage with other populations. But this is still pretty good evidence and certainly food for thought. There is another genetic study that was done in 2019. Researchers analyzed the DNA of 276 Lemba men and compared it with the DNA of Jewish men from around the world. They found that the Lemba men clustered closely with Jewish men from the Middle East and Europe, suggesting a common ancestry. And another study that came out last year in 2022 examined mitochondrial DNA from the Lemba people and found that they share genetic markers with ancient Israelites from the biblical period. Mitochondrial DNA is inherited from the mother and can also help trace ancestry. So these genetic studies are very promising. However, they do not tell us exactly where the Lemba ancestors came from or when they arrived in Africa. It could very well be that they are descended from one of the lost tribes, but again, more research is needed to draw any firm conclusions. Another group that has been suggested as a possible candidate for the lost tribe of Dan is the Falash Mura. These are also people who live in Ethiopia, but they are not to be confused with the other Ethiopian Jews known as the Beta Israel, or the Falash. The Falash Mura are believed to be descendants of the Falash, who converted to Christianity sometime before the 14th century. Like the Lemba, the Falash Mura also have customs and traditions that are similar to those of the ancient Israelites. For example, they practice a form of circumcision and have dietary laws similar to those of kosher dietary laws. However, they don't appear to share the same genetic marker as other Jewish communities. Again, this does not necessarily disprove the theory that they are descendants of the lost tribe of Dan, but it makes it less likely. It should be noted that many Christian scholars reject the idea that any of the lost tribes still exist today. They argue that the Bible is clear that the tribes were lost, and there is no historical or archaeological evidence to suggest otherwise. Some scholars also argue that the genetic studies that have been done are flawed and cannot definitively prove that the Lemba or Falash Mura are related to the ancient Israelites. Ultimately, the question of whether or not the lost tribes still exist today is a matter of faith and belief. There is no concrete evidence that can prove or disprove the various theories that have been proposed. While there are some groups in Africa who claim to be descendants of one of the lost tribes, their claims are based on tradition and oral history rather than on hard evidence. Even the genetic studies that have been done are inconclusive and cannot definitively answer the question. So what do you think? Do you believe that the lost tribe of Dan can be found among the Lemba people or Falash Mura, or perhaps another group entirely? Or do you believe that the tribes were truly lost and there is no hope of finding them today? The 12 tribes of Israel were an integral part of the biblical narrative. They played a pivotal role in the foundation of the nation of Israel, as described in the Old Testament. But what happened to the lost tribes? Why are they still talked about today? This is something that has intrigued historians and researchers for centuries, and there are some pretty popular theories out there. So let's talk about them and find out why people are still looking for these lost tribes even after all this time. But first, if you could do us a huge favor and just tap that like button, it would be greatly appreciated. Thanks so much. And with that, let's dive into the mysteries of the lost tribes of Israel and explore why their legacy continues to captivate us even today. The origins of the lost tribes can be traced back to the biblical account in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verses 64 to 65, which reads, "Cursed is he who does not abide by the words of this law to set them up as a blessing and a curse. A blessing if you obey the commandments of the Lord your God, carefully observed among you. Cursed is he who will not obey, and Israel shall not have mercy on him." This passage lays the foundation for understanding the concept of the lost tribes and their separation from the nation of Israel. According to the biblical narrative, when King Solomon turned away from worshipping the one true God, Yahweh, and instead embraced other gods, the kingdom of Israel was divided into two separate kingdoms, with the northern kingdom comprising the tribes of Dan, Naphtali, Asher, Issachar, Zebulun, Manasseh, and Ephraim. This northern kingdom became known as the Lost Tribes because they were taken into captivity by the Assyrians in 722 BCE and never returned to their homeland. The southern kingdom, which consisted of the tribes of Judah, Levi, Benjamin, Simeon, Issachar, Joseph, and Gad, continued to exist until it was destroyed by the Babylonians in 586 BCE. However, the people of the southern kingdom, known as the Jews, eventually returned from exile and rebuilt both the temple and the city of Jerusalem. In contrast, the northern kingdom, also referred to as the lost tribes of Israel, were never able to return to their land, which led to speculation about their fate and whereabouts throughout history. It is believed that they were assimilated into the cultures of the nations that conquered their territory, such as the Assyrians, Persians, and eventually the Greeks and Romans. Over the centuries, various theories have emerged regarding the possible locations of the lost tribes, with some believing they migrated to India, China, or even the Americas. However, none of these theories have been conclusively proven, leaving the mystery of the lost tribes unsolved. The story of the lost tribes is significant because it explains the division between the northern and southern kingdoms of Israel and the subsequent disappearance of the northern tribes from the historical record. It also raises questions about identity, faith, and the concept of a chosen people. The search for the lost tribes reflects a desire to understand the origins and destiny of the Jewish people and their connection to the land of Israel. It is a testament to the enduring legacy of the tribes and their continued importance in Jewish history and culture. Despite their absence from the historical record, the memory of the lost tribes has lived on through oral traditions, archaeological discoveries, and scholarly research. Their story serves as a reminder of the complexities of the past and the ongoing quest to uncover the truth behind the biblical narrative. There have been several notable attempts to explain the disappearance of the lost tribes, each offering a unique perspective on this enduring mystery. One prominent theory suggests that the lost tribes were taken captive by the Assyrians and subsequently assimilated into the surrounding populations, losing their distinct identity over time. Another theory proposes that the tribes migrated to distant lands, such as India or China, where they may have survived but left no historical record behind. Some scholars believe that the tribes were absorbed into the southern kingdom of Judah, while others argue that they were destroyed during the Assyrian conquest. These various explanations reflect the complexities of the historical record and the challenges of reconstructing the past with limited evidence. Despite the lack of concrete answers, Researchers continue to explore these theories and search for evidence that can shed light on the fate of the lost tribes. They comb through ancient texts, artifacts, and archaeological findings to piece together the events that led to their disappearance and the circumstances surrounding their lives afterward. Each new discovery brings us closer to understanding the story of the lost tribes and their place in Jewish history. As we continue to delve into the mystery of the lost tribes of Israel, it's important to consider the lasting impact their absence has had on history and culture. The disappearance of the tribes led to a fragmentation of the nation of Israel and a break in the continuity of the northern kingdom. This division had profound consequences for the development of Judaism, as the northern tribes were no longer present to contribute to the formation of Jewish identity and religious practices. The loss of the tribes also raised theological questions about the nature of God's covenant with the people of Israel. If the tribes were chosen by God to carry out his mission, what happened to that mission when the tribes disappeared? This theological dilemma prompted intense theological debates and discussions among scholars and theologians throughout history. They grappled with trying to reconcile the biblical narrative with the historical reality of the lost tribes and their absence from the Jewish people. Moreover, the absence of the lost tribes created a void in the historical record that has left gaps in our understanding of Jewish history. Without the records and traditions of the Northern Kingdom, we have limited insights into their culture, customs, and contributions to the broader Israelite community. This absence has made it challenging for historians to reconstruct a comprehensive account of Jewish history during the period when the tribes were lost. The impact of the lost tribes extends beyond the realm of theology and history. It has also influenced literature, art, and popular culture. The mystery surrounding the tribes has captured the imagination of artists and writers who have created works exploring themes of identity, displacement, and the search for belonging. From novels to films, the story of the lost tribes has been interpreted and reimagined, reflecting the enduring fascination with their fate. The legacy of the lost tribes is a rich and complex tapestry woven through the annals of history, theology, and culture. Their disappearance created profound impacts on Judaism, raised theological questions, and left lasting effects on our understanding of Jewish history. As we continue to explore their story, we gain a deeper appreciation for the intricacies of the past and the enduring legacy of the lost tribes of Israel. And so the mystery of the lost tribes continues to captivate researchers and historians, even after all this time. The enduring legacy of the lost tribes is a testament to the human fascination with history, identity, and the search for belonging. As we continue to explore their story, we uncover not only the secrets of the past, but also the depths of our own curiosity and resilience. While we may never fully unravel the enigma surrounding the fate of the lost tribes, the pursuit of answers drives us to push the boundaries of knowledge and understanding. Through archaeological discoveries, genealogical research, and interdisciplinary studies, we strive to piece together the fragments of their history and bring their story to life. With each new discovery, we inch closer to comprehending the forces that shaped their destiny and the impact their disappearance had on the course of history. So what do you think about the lost tribes? Have you come across any interesting theories or evidence? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more captivating historical journeys. Until next time, keep exploring the mysteries of our past and stay curious.